So today we are looking at long division of large numbers. And so in order to do long division long numbers, you can use some of the tools that are available to you. So one of the tools that's available to use in your multiplication table, which is a great tool to use when you're doing long division. Another tool is your calculator. And again, you're not just using the calculator to plug in the numbers that you're dividing, but to actually help you find the multiplications that you need in order to solve the division question. So let's come up with a division question that we can solve here. So we're going to do 8 divided in, 266 divided into 8 equal parts. So one way of doing this, and this is the longer way of doing this, so this would not be long division if I was doing it this way, is that I can draw 8 circles, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then I can actually just count up and go, okay, 1, 2, 3, so I can keep going with my counters until I get to 266. This will take you quite some time. So it's not really the best strategy to use, but it is a strategy that you can use. You can count up by 5s, you can count up by 10s to help you go through that. But what I'm going to show you here is I'm going to show you how to do it using actual long division. So just to help me out here, I'm going to draw some squares up here just so that I can guide myself. So now, if I was doing this, I would say, I know that in the 8 times tables, I'm looking for 266. Oh gosh, that's hard. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to cover up all the digits except for 1. So right now, I'm only looking for the 8 times tables. I'm looking for the number 2. So I go 8 times tables. Can I get the number 2? No, I can't. So since I can't get it, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put an X in that placeholder there. So I know no number goes up there. The next number, so I'm going to uncover the next digit, which is a 6. So I say in the 8 times tables, how close can I get to 26? So I go to the 8 times tables, I go, okay, 26, there we go. 24 is the closest because 32 is too much. So that's by 3. So 8 times 3 is going to give me 24. So up here, now I'm going to put the value 3, and I say 8 times 3 is 24, and I go ahead and I subtract that. And so when you subtract, you can count up, so I can go 4, 5, 6, I have 2 left over, and 2 and 2 is nothing, so it's 0. Then I uncover my next value, which was a 6, and I say, okay, I'm going to bring that 6 down. So now it's 26, and I say, okay, again, I knew that the closest I could get was 24, so I'm going to stick with that number, and I'm going to say that was 3 times. So again, it's 24. And again, once again, I'm left with a 2. So now if I wanted to leave it with a remainder, I could say I have 33 with a remainder of 2. But let's say I don't want a remainder. I want to keep going. I want to see if I can solve this. And in order to continue going, I need to now add a 0. So the moment you add that first 0, you need to add a decimal. Okay? You bring down that 0. And now, I'm going to draw that box back in because now we have another value there that we need to put in. So now I have 20. So I go into my tables, 8 times tables. Now how close can I get to 20? So 24 was 3, so that's too much. So we're going to go with the 2. That's 16. Okay, so we're going to go 8 times 2. So let's put that 2 in. And that's going to be 16. So then I'm going to go ahead and subtract. And I know that I can't subtract a 0. So I can't subtract 6 from 0, so I need to borrow from my friend next door. So now I have 6 taken out of 10. So I go count from up. So 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, which is a 4, and that's going to be a 0. So now, again, I still have a remainder, but let's say I still want to keep going. I want to see if I can solve it. So I add another 0. But this time when I add the other 0, I do not need to add a decimal. I just have to add that placeholder up there. So I'm going to make sure that I have another placeholder up there. So I go in the 8 times tables, how close can I get to 40? And I go through my tables, I go, okay, and, oh, look at that. 40 is right there, and that's by 5. And so I put my 5 up here, and I bring down my 40, and now I have a remainder of 0. So my answer turns out to be, so if I was to divide 266, into 8 equal parts, I would end up with 33.25. So 33 and a quarter would be how it would be divided equally. Okay, so let's move on. Now I want you to try this. So this time I want you to go ahead and take 525 and divide it into 5 equal parts. I want you to pause the video. I want you to try the question. If there is a remainder, I want you to try to keep going so there are no remainders. So try your best to get the number with no remainder at the end. Okay, go ahead and pause. And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. So let's try this question. So again, my first strategy is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to draw my boxes at the top. So I have my placeholders because I want to make sure that I get a number into each of the spots. Okay, so like I did on the first one, I'm going to take away my other two digits. Oops, sorry, I took away more than that, didn't I there? So I'm going to put that 5 back in. And I say in the statement, the 5, can it be divided by 5? And I said yes. I look at my multiplication table, that goes in one time. So let's change the color there. And so that goes by 5, and I'm left with a 0. But remember, there was another digit there. It was a 2. So I'm going to put that 2 back in, and I'm going to bring that down. And I say now in the 5 times tables, can I find 2? And I say, can't do that. So that means that placeholder has to be a 0. So I go 5 times 0 is 0. And I remember I subtract here, so I'm left with a 2. And then I put my next value back in. I uncover that value, and I say that was a 5. So I'm going to bring that value down now. And I have 25. So in the 5 times tables, how close can I get to 25? I know that 5 times 5 is 25. So I put a 5 up here, and that value is 25. And I subtract, and I'm left with a 0. And there you go. In this case, there was no remainder. I had an exact value of 105. So I know that if I have 525 candies and I divide them between 5 friends equally, each friend is going to get 105 candies. Okay, let's move on to the. So now I have 684 divided into 16 equal parts. So again, I want you to pause the video. If there's a remainder, guys, keep going, try your best, pause it, and welcome back. So now again, just as we've done in the past, I'm going to first put my placeholders up there so I know that I have values that I'm going to put into those places. And again, I'm going to cover up my last 2 digits. I don't want to see them. So I go in the 16 times tables, can I get a 6? And I say, no, I can't. So in that place, I'm going to put an X to start off. Then I uncover my next value, which was, which was an 8. And I have in the 16 times tables, can I get as close to 68 as possible? And yes, I can. And the closest I can get is 64. So I know that 4 times 16 is going to equal 64. And again, you can use a calculator to help you out with that. If you have your multiplication table that goes higher than 12, then go ahead and do that as well. So again, you can count up to subtract. So I have 4, I want to get to 8. I'm going to be left with 4. 6 and 6 is a 0. And then I'm bringing down my next value, and my next value was a 4. So I'm bringing down that 4, and now I have 44. And again, I go into 16 times tables or into my calculator. I punch in numbers until I get closest 16 times something that gets closest to 44, and the number I'm getting is a 2. Okay, so the closest I can get is a 32. Again, and I subtract, when I subtract this value, 2 going up to 4 is left with a 2. And that's left with a 1. And again, I'll have a remainder. I don't want that remainder. Remember, I told you I want to try to get as close to the value as possible. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to make these numbers a little smaller so I can keep writing because I ran out of space there. So the moment I add that 0 that I want to add in, what do I need to do? I need to add that decimal. That's super important. So my decimal goes there. And because I'm going to keep going, I'm going to add that place value right there because I need to know that there's going to be a number going in that box. I need to know what it is. So I bring down my 0. Now I'm going in the 16 times tables, how close can I get to 120? And again, use your calculator and get that number. And the closest I'm getting is 7. So 16 times 7 equals 112. Sorry, guys, I wrote that wrong. Is 112. And I'm going to go ahead and subtract, and I can't do that, so I do that. And count up, so it goes to an 8. And I have nothing else left over, because 1 subtract 1 is 0, and 1 subtract 1 is 0. So I'm left with an 8. Again, have a number left over, don't want that. I'm going to add another 0 this time again. Remember, we don't add the additional decimal, we just add our place value holder up here. Now, how close can I get to 80? And hey, look at that. In 16 times 5 actually equals 80. So I put my 5 up there, I put my 80, and I'm left with a 0. So remainder of 0. So it's 42.75 would be as close as I can get using my decimals and using those placeholders, bringing down those additional zeros, okay? So let's keep going. So now, oh, look at that, a word problem. So for Remembrance Day, the school received 864 puppies, and the office staff wants to distribute them equally to all of the classes in the building. So the key words that we're looking for here is, what are they asking me to do? What math concept? And the word equally gives that away. So the moment I use the word equally, it means that I need to divide. I'm looking for a quotient. So they want to equally distribute them between 32 classes. So how many was each class getting? So I want you to go ahead, write a division statement. We are looking for a quotient, and you are going to pause the video, find the answer, and then come back and take a look. Okay, so go ahead and pause. Okay, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. So let's do this. So I know that the numbers that I'm dividing 864 into 32 equal parts. So I have 32 classes, and I want to divide those puppies up. So like we've done in the past, again, we cover up the 2 digits, so we only have an 8, and I know, sorry guys, I'm going to put my placeholders here like I have again. I know I'm writing a little small, but I want to try to fit this in. So 8, it does not work, so we put an X there, and then my other digit again was a 6. I'm going to put my 6 back in. So in the 32, when I look at 32, I type it into my calculator, see how close I can get. I know that the closest I can get is a 2. So 32 times 2 is a 64. And then I go ahead and I subtract, and I'm left with 22. And I keep going, and it's a 4. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to bring down that 4. So I'm looking for 244, and oh my gosh, I type it into my calculator and I find it's 27. So that's 224. Sorry guys, kind of rushing here. 224, and I subtract, and that's a 0. So I know that each class, so therefore we're just going to type in that each class will receive 27 puppies. Okay, so when they're equally distributed, that's what each class will receive. Awesome. Now, we are on our last question. Remember, this one I don't tell you the answer to. You are going to read the question. You are going to try to solve it. This is a 2-part question. It might require you to find a quotient and a product. It might require you to find a sum or a difference. So you need to figure out what you're looking for. I'm going to read the question out really quickly so you have an idea what you're looking for. The Eco team is running a fundraiser. They have sold 265 books so far to 96 students. If each book, oh, sorry, there's a typo there. If each book was sold for the same price, so that's a mistake, guys. I'm going to correct that right now. If each book was sold for the same price, what amount did they charge for each book? Okay, so I want you to make sure that you can answer that. You got to find that out. I don't know what I'm doing. Am I finding the quotient? Am I finding the product? And the next part says, what was the total amount fundraised? Again, so I want you to try that. I want you to bring that back to class. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you.